Hello everyone and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Mind and Muse Crafts podcast. I am Caroline, your host, and I'm back home. Thank you for joining me. Hello there, and thank you once again for pressing that watch button and for wanting to come by here and share a little bit of the crafty side of my life, which you all know if you've been here before. And if it is the first time that you're joining us, I'm just going to say that this is a podcast where I share all things crafty that are part of the crafty side of my life. Normally, I do a lot of crochet, but every once in a while I'll do some needle felting, and who knows if I'll slip in a little bit of knitting every now and then. So thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy this little chat that we're going to have here for the next half hour. Now, you'll notice that once again, I am home on the island of Puerto Rico, where I usually record these podcasts. But for the past couple of months, I've been away from home. I was traveling to help my son out with his grandson. He's a new father, and so the baby was born very premature, as you'll know if you've been around here for a while. And so I was just trying to help them out while they got used to having a baby, and because he needed some special attention still. I had told them I could be with them for 1 month because, you always have to come back home. There are doctor's appointments and there are things that you just need to do. And so I wasn't ready to move in with them yet, but I was offering my help for a little while. So I have returned home and I'm off schedule. I normally, let's just say not normally, but at the beginning of this year, I proposed to bring a new episode to you twice a month, either the 14th or the 28th or the 15th and the 30th. I was still not on a routine schedule yet, but I totally went off that schedule this month because just life got very hectic there at the beginning of March. If you've been here for a while, you'll know that my son was moving from New Hampshire to Alabama, and that move was going to take place during the days that I was spending with him. And it did, but it was really difficult the last couple of days. Later on, when I was about ready to come home, we got the bad news that one of my sisters is very ill and has refused treatment, and so they have asked us to get ready for, her final days. So that's what we're doing, and so that meant instead of coming straight home, taking a little turn there to New York, which is where she lives, and trying to fit in a short visit where I could at least see her one last time. And so that was that. That had to be done, and it was done. And then finally I was able to meet up with my husband for Elizabeth's birthday and come back home. But the trip back home with Elizabeth from New York was just incredible how so many things could happen on just one trip. So we got stuck in North Carolina, which was our connecting airport, because our plane had come in late, so we lost our connection flight. We didn't get a space on the last flight out that evening, so we had to wait until the next day. And then the next day, we spent a long time, since very early in the morning, trying to catch a flight to Florida so Elizabeth could be home with her husband and her dad, at least for a little while, on her birthday. And we made it, and we were able to just, at least she was able to put her head down and lie in her bed and have a good night's sleep at the end of a very tiring 2 days. So life has been hectic, but you're not here to hear this. I just wanted to get it off my chest and out of the way for you. You're here to find out about the crafting. Well, honestly, I haven't been able to do very much crafting because it's just been crazy. It's just been crazy. But I think about my crafting all the time. And so, yes, there were some things. While I was in New Hampshire, the ladies at the Dartmouth Hospital were very kind to my daughter-in-law, and they gave her all kinds of goodies and memoirs for me to have of my grandson. And so over Christmas, they made this ornament where you will see that there's a ribbon inside. And the ribbon inside, let's see, it says, this ribbon is very special indeed because if you untie it, it is exactly the same size as me. Well, referring to the same size as my grandson was back in December, the same length, let's say, that he was back in December. So the ribbon is how big he was. So that was one thing, an ornament that they left with my daughter-in-law for me. And, well, not only for me, I guess they gave her several of them. I don't know. I'm pretty sure this was not the only one. They also created this for me. Well, not only for me, but for all the grandparents. This as a memoir of his feet, and they used his 2 little feet to make a butterfly. And it says, this isn't just a butterfly, as you can plainly see. I made it with my feet, which are a part of me. It comes with lots of love, especially to say, I hope you have a very happy Grandparents' Day. So they put that together for all the grandparents in the NICU. And so that's another thing that I will be keeping as a memoir of how tiny my grandson was when he was born, and how much he has grown, So if you'll remember, the last time that I was on here, I was working on a project. I was working on getting to know more about filet crochet, and I was working on a couple of projects. One of them was a heart table topper. And you'll remember that I was almost done with it. This is a free pattern, and you can find it at stonegnome.com. And the idea is that you can make one of these motifs, 2 of the motifs to have a complete heart, or all 8 of them to have probably a table topper. So if you'll look at the first one that I did, I've only completed one. Here it is completely. And I'm thinking that looks kind of nice. What do you think? Look how pretty. I'm thinking it could be used as a bunting also. You could hang this as a bunting. You could probably create like a balance in front of a curtain, and just hang this as a balance. Well, not just this one, but many of them, either crochet together or independently, just hang each of them independently at the top. I think that's very nice. Maybe I'm a little bit out of date. This should have been last month, but well, I finished it now, so I decided to share it with you. My intention had been for it to be a bookmark, but pretty sure my hook was too big. And so the motif came out to be larger. Don't know if I've told you, but it is very unnatural for me because it is Friday evening, well, Friday night, and it is about 10 o'clock in the evening. I've never recorded a podcast in the evening, but this is it. Tomorrow is my 33rd anniversary. And so, well, we don't have a lot planned, but I do need to get a cake done for my husband. I do need to, I don't know, have a special breakfast for him. We probably will go out to eat somewhere, so I won't be making lunch, but I do need to get him a cake. That is always part of his gift. And so I wanted to get this done today so I can get it up during the night and reach out to you guys before the month continues on. So that's why I'm recording, and that's why you'll see funny lightings. You'll see my you'll see my spotlights turning on and off because I don't know, they've got this thing. I guess if they get too hot, they turn off. But anyway, back to my motif. Here's the motif inside of a notebook. As you can see, it is, and as you can see, it is very much larger than my notebook. And so, yeah, I don't think that it would work as a bookmark, which is what I was going for. It came out too big. Now, I worked this up with a 1.25 millimeter hook. For most of it, I used embroidery thread, DMC embroidery thread. I did not tear apart the strands. I used all the strands together. And then I ran out of embroidery thread here and was back home, so I just decided to finish it off with crochet thread, number 10 crochet thread from Knit Picks that I had lying around there. Because it got to a point where that DMC embroidery thread, I don't know if it was because there was something special about it or there was a lot of thread in the package, but it was a lot more expensive than what I pay here for it, which is something really weird. So I said, no, it's just going to be more expensive if I keep on purchasing the embroidery thread. I'm just going to finish it off with normal crochet thread. And that I did, and they're pretty much similar, so you really can't see the difference. So I don't know if I'll do another one. I could make another one and maybe turn this into a tabletop doily. And sew them together and maybe have that as a tabletop doily for next St. Valentine's Day. So that was my table topper. Then you'll remember these earrings that I wore on not the last episode, the third episode, where I was doing something like a Valentine's Day episode. Well, on that episode, I mentioned that this was on my blog, and someone reached out to me and said they had been wanting to make this, but hadn't had time to look it up. And that got me to thinking that I think I should look it up myself and to make sure that it was on my blog, because I had said it was there. And lo and behold, when I went to my blog, it wasn't there. And then Valentine's Day came around, and my Clarissabeth, my daughter, reached out to me and said, Mom, I was looking for the pattern for that earring that you wore on your podcast to make it for Valentine's Day, but I couldn't find it. And I said, well, yeah, that's because it's not there. So as soon as I got back, I set up to recreating this. I couldn't find my notes anywhere. I don't know, I must have had them because I looked at the episode where I showed them for the first time, and I mentioned having written up taken notes on what I did here so that I could write it up as a pattern, but I never did it. So I sat down with this one and I inverse or reverse engineered it. Is that what they call it? So by looking at this one, I tried to recreate it. I knew that I had started out in the middle with the granny square. Let's say a granny square that I turned to the side, so it's kind of like a diamond, and then I worked around it. So lo and behold, I was able to reverse engineer that. What do I have on? Oh, I've got kidney wire on here. To inverse engineer that, and so I was able to work up the pattern again. I was able to write up the pattern, and it is on my blog. So if you were the one who reached out to me because you were interested in making this, know that it is on my blog. It is under the page that says free crochet patterns. And if you have never seen my blog, I'll remind you that my blog is called Mind and Muse Crafts, and you can find it at mindandmusecrafts.com. And you can actually Google it if you don't remember how to get there. Mindandmuse.com. Let me just go to the first page. Okay. And the first page, that looks like this. Mind and Muse Crafts, nurturing my creative side. It's got a banner at the top, and below it's got some blog posts, as do blogs. They have blog posts. Some of those blog posts have patterns at the end. Some of them have the bracelet patterns that I have mentioned here before. Some of them have other jewelry patterns that I have talked about before. Some of them talked about, for example, my experiences when we were doing the Oddments Cal, my experience when I was doing the Snoopy sweater that I wore, etc. So, I don't know. I've had fun writing them up. And so, but if you go to the page called Free Crochet Patterns, right? Then you'll find all of the free patterns that I have talked about on this podcast. And here's one that I also put up recently because when I looked for it during the month of March to celebrate St. Patrick's Day and to remind you guys that this was up there if you wanted to make a little memoir of the day. And when I looked, it wasn't there. This was a pattern that I wrote up for Crochet Zine. Crochet Zine, if you remember, was the first, if not the, well, one of the first Instagram magazines. And it's been a year when they took a short break and they haven't come back. But during February of 2019, I proposed this pattern for their issue in March, and they said that they were full, but they would post it as a story on the 17th of March if I would send it to them. So I sent it to them, and they posted it as a story. And now I'm wondering if anybody tried to get to that pattern, if that person was ever able to, because I could not find that pattern anywhere on my blog. So I just posted it recently because I don't know where it was. I had it on my computer, but it wasn't here. And so the socks I've made with that, that same pattern for the bookmark, I also made it into a square. I grannified it, as I say in the pattern. And And then I put up the pattern for this motif with the sort of a combination of a granny square and a doily. And I just posted it finally. So if any of you are interested in my granny heart motif, it is on my blog. And you can make one for yourself or you can gift it. And I wanted taupey colored earrings. And so luckily I was able to find the exact color and work these up. And the pictures that are in the photo tutorial, let's say, of the pattern are of me making this earring, this actual one. So there, I haven't done so much crochet in sense of large projects, but I have been up to a lot of things while I've been updating my blog. Another thing I can tell you about the blog is, let's see, the Granny Got Lucky pattern, that square. Well, look at what I did. I've always told you that I like celebrating anything and everything. And so March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, I go to my blog and I was reviewing some of the patterns there. And I've always liked this square, the grannified 4-leaf clover. The pattern for that 4-leaf clover is in my bookmark and it's also here. And I said, you know, I think my daughter Clarissa Beth was making the bookmark and she was showing me how small hers was compared to mine. And I said, well, I started wondering, what if I made this square using crochet thread, Aunt Lydia's crochet thread in size 10, as I normally do, and a 1.25 millimeter hook. What would the square be small enough to be an earring, was my question. And lo and behold, I used a 1 millimeter hook and Aunt Lydia's number 10 cotton. I don't know what the name, this is an intense green, and this is the same taupe color that I'm wearing right now. And for St. Patrick's Day, I was able to wear these very cute earrings. I mean, they're not too all in your face, you know, they don't shout St. Patrick's Day. It's just that I know that I made them for St. Patrick's Day, so I will associate them with that event. But I mean, if somebody were watching me, nobody, I wore them, I had a doctor's appointment that day, then I went to the supermarket, and nobody mentioned anything about, oh, how pretty your St. Patrick's Day earrings. But, so, you know, I don't think it shouts out St. Patrick's Day, but I knew why I had made them. And so that is the size of this square. That is the size of this square if you make it with a small enough hook and a small enough thread. So I have here with me the squares that are shown in the pattern. And so this is the size of the square made with, it says here, a size 5 millimeter hook. And this is Peaches and Cream, Forest Green. And this is Peaches and Cream, Rosemary. And these are just different acrylic yarns that I had hanging around. But it's also done with the size 5, and they are also worsted weight. This is worsted weight acrylic, this is worsted weight cotton. And so they're pretty big if you compare them to my earrings. Size 5mm hook, worsted weight yarn. And this is a 1.25mm hook with size 10 crochet thread. So there's just another example of how a lot of the motifs that you see, if you see a granny square that you really like a lot, it is not difficult to turn that into an accessory, like as an earring or a bracelet or maybe a sleeve for a cardigan or a blouse. It is not difficult at all. So there, I found a couple of patterns that I hadn't written up, and I wrote them up. A couple of patterns that were not on my blog, and I put them on my blog. I wrote a blog post about the Snoopy cardigan, and I've been very active on my blog as of late. So if you have any interest in any of those things, you can go and visit my blog and find. If you don't find them, just let me know. Remember that I always have an email that I have separated for this podcast. It is mindandmuse@gmail.com. Mind and Muse. There's no crafts on my email. Just mindandmuse@gmail.com. And you can always write to me about anything pertaining to this podcast. Any help that you need with any of the patterns that I have published, any help that you need finding any of the patterns that I mentioned on this podcast, or just something you would like to share with me about what you've been up to, or I don't know, any special requests that you would like to share with me about this podcast. So yes, mindandmuse@gmail.com is the best way to communicate with me about anything that goes on here on this podcast. So that's basically what I've been up to. Basically, all my crafting time has gone into writing patterns, writing blog posts, and updating my blog. And those are things that also need to be done, but are not as entertaining for you as actually seeing and hearing about projects that I complete. So I won't ramble on about it. I thank you for being here today. I thank all of you who have reached out to me asking me about my grandson. He is doing well, as I have mentioned. I was able to do quite a bit of kitchen crafting while I was with my son. They tend to celebrate each month as the baby gets a month older, because of the fact that every month is full of new challenges for him to face and to overcome. So they basically keep track month by month. And so there were cakes to bake, and they were also saying goodbye to a lot of neighbors and expressing their gratitude and appreciation for neighbors, nurses, and co-workers that have helped them in any special way. And so there was a lot of baking being done to gift baking goods to those people. And so it has not been an idle month in terms of crafting. It has just not been weeks in which I have done my normal crafting. So I'm back at home for a while, and hopefully in 2 weeks' time, I'll be able to come back here with some new ideas for you to try out, or some new news about my crafty adventures. So I want to thank you for being here today, and I want to remind you that, as always, you should keep yourself safe, try very hard to keep yourself healthy, and keep crafting. Bye for now.